Brace yourself for a crash course to financial freedom and the life of luxury you deserve for your mileage and your time. Many drivers say $1 a mile is acceptable, and others would say less. Let's explore why they're both wrong. For 2025, the IRS has a 70-cent per mile minimum standard deduction toward your costs for automobile depreciation, fuel, parts and labor, maintenance, etc., and more can be itemized if actual cost exceeds the 70-cent per mile minimum. This rate is based on research for reimbursement, so the IRS isn't missing out on tax dollars. Although it's a tax credit for independent contractors, not a full dollar-for-dollar reimbursement, it only reduces tax debt to the IRS. Employee drivers would be fully compensated for mileage. Independent contractors pay tax on profit after the standard mileage deduction, or SMD, so tax is not owed if you don't make more than the SMD. The IRS is notified to audit for tax evasion, fraud, or company misclassification when workers don't pay tax after the standard mileage deduction. 70 cents a mile is driving at cost. Any less is a loss. $1 a mile is still only $6 taxable profit after SMD for 20 miles in 60 minutes. Not even $18 taxable profit for 60 miles in 60 minutes is fair when the cost for 60 miles at 70 cents per mile alone is $42 even before counting time. The significance is a loss to the federal budget if you don't pay your share on generally 92.75% income tax after deductions plus 12.4% for Social Security and 2.9% for Medicare for a total of 15.3% self-employment tax, half of which is deductible as a second-party employer portion of the tax to the federal budget if you do not have more deductions. It's company tax theft not to pay integral independent contractors in the same course of business, like rideshare drivers for a rideshare app, enough to make a significant profit in order to pay out significant tax as much as employees do or more for the time and full mileage reimbursement. The U.S. Department of Labor requires employers of independent contractors to pay at least the equivalent of minimum wage and overtime for active engaged time, also known as driving time, in addition to mileage, which is why drivers can file wage theft claims for back pay. Drivers properly classified as independent contractors are paid significantly more than employees, not just as much or less. This is why contractors don't have rights to another enforced minimum wage. This is what misclassification looks like. Have a look at this trip from Denver, for example. The IRS and U.S. Department of Labor both have their own economics realities tests that align and require independent contractors to be profitable under control of employers like Uber, for example. Both Uber and Lyft have settled multiple lawsuits from multiple states and drivers. Federal penalties are fines and imprisonment for the core staff of the companies, plus repayment of benefits from sick leave and a healthcare requirement for full-time workers and dependents by the Affordable Care Act that generally starts at 30 hours a week. Drivers will be classified as employees under law enforcement, but that won't stop the exploitation since it's still not worth driving for minimum wage nor 1.5 times after reimbursement. So the question is, what is fair pay? Fares should triple from 1 to 3 miles or respectively from 20 to 60 miles like taxis, and drivers should be making at least 2 times or 200% times minimum wage taxable profit at an average 3 minutes per mile or 20 miles an hour, and 6 times or 600% at 60 miles per hour after the IRS standard mile deduction. Thus, the fare per unit of time should correlate with the speed. Taxis generally profit near 300% to 900% times minimum wage per second, minute, and hour. Therefore, $1.42.5 plus 24.166 cents per minute after 3 minutes a mile is the least any driver in a $7.25 an hour market should accept, since profitable tax after 70 cents a mile standard cost is 2 times minimum wage at 3 minutes a mile for 24.166 cents per minute at 20 miles an hour, or $14.50 an hour at 20 miles per hour, to 6 times minimum wage at a minute per mile for 72.5 cents per minute at 60 miles per hour, or $43.50 an hour at 60 miles an hour after cost, and over 2 times the cost. Also, $43.50 at 60 miles is triple the $14.50 fare at 20 miles. The equation for this is 3 minutes a mile times 200% times minimum wage per hour divided by 60 minutes an hour plus the IRS standard mileage rate at 70 cents per hour in 2025. Fare pay for 31 miles and 51 minutes for an average of 36.47 miles per hour in Denver is 364.7%, or $58.31 taxable profit after $21.70 cost from $80.01 gross at $2.58.1 per mile, not $6.20. Denver taxis charge $86.80 at $2.80 a mile for 31 miles. Who knows what Uber is even charging here? But we know it isn't fair pay. The California Delivery and Rideshare App Drivers Guarantee, Prop 22, was one of the most expensive propositions for a public vote paid for by and for Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash. And it's one of the lowest enforced rates in the nation. Drivers receiving biweekly earnings adjustments that make up for the difference that they should have earned and received up front are getting roughly minimum wage or less before tips. They don't even pay the legal minimum wage up front. The guarantee is only 120% times minimum wage plus mileage, which at $16.50 an hour California state minimum wage is currently equivalent to 33 cents a minute plus 36 cents a mile for 69 cents a mile at an average rate of a minute a mile or 60 miles an hour for a net loss of a penny a mile or 60 cents for 60 minutes and 60 miles. And it does happen, believe it or not. While taxis profit from over 3 to 9 times minimum wage for the same miles and speeds, since they charge a flat rate per mile until they slow down at 5 minutes a mile or 12 miles per hour when they tack an additional time rate to the mile rate. The faster the speed, the less drivers make per mile, the more Uber and Lyft take, while taxis make more per unit of time. This is how the companies scam drivers and riders. It's literally highway robbery, since the mileage rate cuts and removing rate cards with mile plus minute rate guarantees altogether. Driver profits or company profit when business would stand still without us. California and all other states should be 200% at 3 minutes a mile or 3 minutes a mile times 200% times minimum wage plus 70 cents a mile, which in California is $2.35 a mile plus 200% times minimum wage or 55 cents a minute after 3 minutes a mile. That's $141 gross at $2.35 a mile, or $99 taxable profit for 6 times minimum wage after $42 cost, versus 60-cent loss from $41.40 gross for 60 minutes and 60 miles. That's $100 difference. Prop 22 guarantees anywhere from minimum wage-ish to a loss after cost. Not even the Washington state guarantee is fair. Fares don't triple at $1.73 a mile at a minute a mile to $2.51 a mile at 3 minutes a mile average, and the minimum should be $2.36.6 a mile up to 3 minutes a mile plus 55.5 cents a minute after 3 minutes a mile for at least 200% times minimum wage or 55.5 cents per minute, which is $33.32 an hour, to 600% times minimum wage or $1.66 a minute, which is $99.96 an hour, taxable profit. Lyft wants to charge $139 for 50 minutes plus 49 miles to PDX, Portland International Airport, when that trip should be worth at least roughly $116. At a speed of 60 miles per hour, 600% times minimum wage taxable profit should yield $1.66 a minute or $99.96 an hour, but 58.79 miles per hour would yield 588% times minimum wage at $1.63.18 per minute or $97.96 per hour. Seattle taxi is way off, which isn't surprising, but rideshare is nearly spot on where it should be at $2.77.6 per mile plus 69.2 cents per minute minimum, although it's overpriced with additional fees and delivery is ridiculous at 47.3 cents per minute at 20 miles per hour or $28.39 an hour gross at 20 miles in an hour to 52 cents a minute at 60 miles per hour or $31.20 an hour gross at 60 miles in an hour, when it should be $55.52 an hour versus $28.39 to $166.56 an hour versus $31.20. This is an example of a pay cut, like the ones from every market. The first in Portland, Oregon took place in spring 2016. By 2021, Lyft's average rates per mile had dropped by 42 to 49% gross or 54 to 70% taxable net, aside from the base rate, while minimum wage increased by 51.35% or $4.75 an hour, and the mileage rate has only increased by one whole whopping penny per mile since. 2015 was an average of $1.85 a mile at a minute a mile average, or 60 miles per hour, to $2.45 a mile at 3 minutes a mile, or 20 miles per hour gross. Today, it's 95 cents a mile to $1.43 a mile, respectively. 2015 was $49 an hour gross, or $37.50 an hour for 405.405% times minimum wage after cost for 20 miles in an hour, to $111 an hour gross, or $76.50 an hour for 827% times minimum wage after cost for 60 miles in an hour. Today it is $28.60 an hour gross, or $14.50 an hour for 89.5% times minimum wage after cost for 20 miles, to $57 an hour gross, or $15 an hour for 92% times minimum wage after cost for 60 miles in 2025, a decade later. And minimum wage is now $16.30 an hour since inflation increased by $7.05 an hour, or 76.2% times minimum wage. Their overall decade pay decrease was roughly 61% to 80.4% average per hour, or 77.9% times minimum wage to 88.87% times minimum wage in contrast. Other markets are worse. Guess where the money's going? Portland should be at least $2.33 a mile plus 54 cents a minute after 3 minutes a mile until the next increase in July 2026. 200 to 600% times minimum wage taxable profit seems fair, while taxis are making 300 to 900% times minimum wage taxable profit after 70 cents a mile from $3.20 a mile gross for $2.50 a mile profit. Drivers used to make 75% to 90% of the fare, but the table flipped in 2018 when both Uber and Lyft also removed the multiplier, which was altered to a lower dollar amount or nothing at all when the companies take it all from riders. Since then, they started using Trip Radar, where they rush multiple drivers to accept a single trip to get rid of the rate cards to take more of the fare. Drivers' profit is company profit, and there are always going to be drivers that can't be convinced to take more. In order for delivery and rideshare drivers to raise the rates back up with a fare guarantee, control the fare, and receive 100% of the fare, drivers, customers, and advocates are organizing for a fare app from the roots in an online community marketplace by and for us called Agora Hive on our website and a social media network. We are the backbone. Business would stand still without the users of the app, like any musical band without its fans. Come join the future of fair gig work. Our community fundraiser to pay for startup costs will power up our organic grassroots app, and there are more ways than one to contribute. We can get the app up in 2026. The sooner we can meet our goals, the sooner we can get what we need. So come join the chats and bring your friends. Get started today and download the logo and business card to share and grow the community. Fair pay is just a click away. A video and resources are available on the website to help you build your own business, as well as an easy calculator to figure out how much is fair. We'll see you there.